Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Have you ever finished building a model and thought, why doesn't mine look as good as the pictures? The secret? Panel lining. It's the critical first step that's simple, beginner-friendly, and really satisfying. In this video, I'll cover what panel lining is, the tools you'll need, how to apply it step by step, and how to fix some common problems, like when the lines aren't deep enough to hold the paint. So if you're new to Gunpla, if you've never tried panel lining before, or if you just want to see how I'm tackling it on my own kit, stick around. First, let's talk tools. I'm going to try 3 different panel lining paints: gray, dark gray, and black. There are 2 different types of paint. The gray and dark gray are enamel-based paints, and the black is oil-based paint. The other difference is the gray and dark gray have built-in applicators, as you can see here. The black does not, as you can see. So for the black, I will be using this paintbrush. It's a very thin paintbrush that's very good for panel lining. I'll test each color on different parts of the kit to see what works best. Panel lining can get a little messy, so for cleanup, I've got cotton swabs, paper towel, and 2 different types of thinners, each matched to the type of paint I'm using. Sometimes panel lines aren't deep enough to hold the paint properly. That's where scribers come in. They're great for fixing up or enhancing existing lines. This is a pull broach. As the name suggests, it's designed to be pulled along the groove using gentle passes so that it doesn't dig too deep. The tool comes in many different widths. For this model, I'll be using a 0.3 millimeter. There are also other types of broaches, but we will not be using those for this part of the build. So that's everything I'll be working with. Pretty minimal, but it covers the basics. So what exactly is panel lining? It's a process of adding a bit of paint or ink to the recessed lines on your kit. The grooves are already molded into the plastic, but without panel lining, they kind of disappear, especially under bright light or on light armor colors. So you can see with this particular piece, there are a lot of details in here with the panel lines or different areas that show different parts. Without panel lining, they kind of disappear. It's really hard to see any of the details. So panel lining helps to bring those details out. The paint flows into the grooves, adds contrast and definition, and makes the whole model look sharper and more dynamic. So here is a piece, the same piece, or opposite side piece, that does have panel lines, and you can see that it shows up much better than the unpaneled line. As we start applying the lining, we'll also talk about color, because not all colors work well on all parts, especially when your kit has different shades of armor. This model has dark gray and white parts. As you can see on the model, most of the parts are white, but there are some dark gray parts as well. So again, to show the difference, here is unpanel lined and panel lined. And just to verify, this one is panel lined in black so that it really shows the panel lines and really shows the definition. Let's start with the white part. I've heard that for white parts, a light gray should be used. We'll test out all 3 colors and see what they look like. Here I have 2 very similar parts, one from each side of the model, and I will use different colors on each one so that we can really compare the 2. So let's start with the light gray paint. So the light gray paint has a built-in applicator. First we shake up the paint to ensure it is well mixed. Then we remove the applicator, brushing it on the top to remove most of the paint. We just touch the applicator into the groove and let the paint flow. The capillary action does the work for you. If it does not complete the whole line, add more paint to the current spot or try applying to a different spot in the line. Let's do the same for this line. Now we wait a few minutes for it to dry. It could look quite messy, but we will fix it once it dries. In order to clean up the excess paint, we first open the proper thinner and dip a Q-tip into the liquid, and you can dab it a little on the paper towel to remove a lot of it because you don't want it too wet. Then you brush the Q-tip across the line so as not to remove the paint from the line itself. I like to do it first with the wet side and then with the dry side. Now we can put that away. Now let's compare it, the light gray to the unpainted. You can already see that there is a difference. You can really see the lines a lot better in the painted versus the unpainted. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at using the dark gray. Now in order to show the difference, I am going to use the unpainted part for the dark gray, and then we can compare dark gray to light gray. So we're going to do the same process with the dark gray. First, we're going to shake it to make sure it's fully mixed. And then we're going to use the applicator, which we're going to take most of the paint off. And we're going to lightly touch. There. So now we're going to let this one dry. Now because this is the same paint, we use the same thinner, and we can actually use the same Q-tip. It dries pretty fast on the Q-tip, so you may need to reapply. So let's clean up this piece. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of streaking as you do this, so you just want to kind of go over the areas in the opposite direction. Just try not to go over the lines because you don't want to remove the paint that was applied. So we can put that stuff away again. Now let's compare the light gray to the dark gray. So far I actually prefer the dark gray. I think it gives a little bit more definition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the light gray and try applying the black to that piece. Now, in order to remove the light gray, we're going to do something I mentioned not to do before, is we are going to go into the line with the thinner, because we actually want to remove the paint from the lines themselves. So you can put it in and rub it and do it with both the clean and, or the wet and dry sides of the Q-tip to make sure you can remove all of the paint. Some lines may be a little more complicated to do this with, as they may be deeper. But in this particular case, they're not quite so deep, so they're easy for me to remove. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to use the black. Now this one does not have an applicator, so I will be using this brush. So first, again, we shake the paint to make sure it's well mixed. And then we open it up. Using this brush as an applicator, we dip it into the paint. And again, remove as much of the paint as possible. And then touch it like you did with the other ones. There, until you have all the lines filled. Now, we're going to put that paint away and wait for this to dry. So this is a different type of paint, so we will be using a different thinner. But the process is exactly the same. I'm going to dip a Q-tip in. You can Actually scrape it a little here if you want to get rid of most of it to begin with, and then quickly dab it. And then again, go across the lines. And again, use the wet and dry parts, or sides. Sometimes it streaks more if you have forgotten to let it dry enough. Now we'll put that away. Now let's compare the two. This is dark gray and this is black. Personally, I prefer the black over the dark gray, so we'll be using black for this model for the light parts. Now for the next part, I don't have two different parts like I did the first time, so I will be using just the two different lines to try two different colors. In this case, I doubt the black will do any good, so we won't do the black. We'll do the light gray and the dark gray. So let's start with the light gray. Again, shake it. Take most of the paint off. And then touch it into the recess. You should see the paint going down. In this case, it's going to probably take a couple of dabs in order for it to go down. And we probably want to not always dab on the top, but in this case, we'll probably dab down here. Now to speed up this process, I'm going to do the dark gray at the same time, but just in the other line. So let's go ahead and we'll shake it up and do the same thing, but applying it to the other line. And we will let it dry. Okay, so let's clean this piece off now. Again, make sure to go across the line so we don't pull the paint out from inside the line. In this case, you can see that each color has a completely different look. So this one makes it look darker, this one makes it look lighter. Both of them give an interesting definition, but I think in this case I prefer the light gray over the dark gray. So for these types of parts, I'm going to use the light gray. So what is the result? I'm going to use the light gray with the dark parts, and I'm going to use the black with the light parts. So for the rest of the video, I'm going to do the panel lining for these parts. It's not quite all of the parts of the kit, but these are the ones that have the largest or most complete panel lines, and so I'm going to start here. First, I'm going to start by applying the black to all of the white parts. So let's begin. I'm going to apply the paint to all the parts, and then I will clean them up afterwards, after they've all dried. You see, by mistake, I put a little bit too much paint on this one, but I actually kind of like the way that it surrounded the whole piece with a black line, so I'm going to redo the other one to do the same thing. Since the hand is covering this area here, I won't bother painting those lines because you're not going to see them anyway because of the hand. Okay, now we're going to let this dry for a while. So now that the parts have all been painted, we're going to go ahead and we're going to clean them up. Oh, you can see I actually missed two pieces there, so I'll come back and fix those in a minute. Okay, you'll see that these two pieces, there's a line there, and it's not deep enough to hold the paint. And you can see both of the pieces on both sides are the same situation. Also, the line at the top here also has the same issue. So I am going to use the scriber to see if I can make the holes a little deeper so that I can put on the paint properly. So you just go into the line and follow it and just slowly drag it out. Don't do too much pressure because you don't want to dig too deeply. Now just rub this along to get rid of any excess pieces that have been scraped off. And then we will do the same with this piece. Okay, so now I am going to apply the paint to the two parts that the two dots I missed and to the newly scribed places. Okay, now we'll let this dry and see if it makes any difference. Now we'll clean up the parts that we just repainted and we will see how well the rescribing works. And as you can see, the rescribing worked. Now we can see the proper panel lines for those areas that currently could not hold paint. The only thing left to do is to do the panel lining for the dark gray pieces, which I am going to be using the light gray paint. So let's get these. So these parts are the ones I'm going to be doing the light gray paint on. So let's do that. Okay, now we're going to let that dry, clean that up. These pieces I'm not going to do after all. And then we will come back and see how it looks when it's all put back together with the panel lines all done and complete. So this is how it looks once it is panel lined. You can see this particular model doesn't have a lot of panel lines, but the ones that do have actually makes quite a bit of difference in the way that it looks. The next video I'm going to do on panel lining will be how to add panel lines to this particular model in order to make it look even better. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you at the next video.